Okay, all right. So, Mr. Ortiz, this is a
Yes,
new
sir.
project that Miss Alondra and I talked about like sometime last fall. I'll be honest with you, I've never really listened to podcasts, but Alondra does.
Okay.
And so she came to the idea, she said, hey, I want to start a podcast and all that. And, now that I'm retired and all that, I said, that might be a way for me to continue my learning. Because, as teachers, we're always teaching and learning. That's
Oh
what we
my God,
become good
about
teachers.
it.
And so I
I
said,
retired.
huh?
I retired just at I turned in my paperwork when COVID just hit. It was 2020, and I didn't know that it was going to be the COVID, and I never went back to the classroom. I taught 2 semesters on internet, and then that was it. I retired, and after a year and a half of nothing, when SAISD asked me if I wanted to teach again, I jumped. I said yes. I really didn't even think about it. I didn't even think about it, and it's you're absolutely correct. It's as teachers, we never stop learning. We never stop teaching.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a trademark of good teachers is to keep the learning going.
Right.
And so when Alondra presented me with this idea, I said, well, that's great, because through these interviews and through everything we're doing, I'm going to continue to learn. So that was the crux of this whole idea. That's how it started. And then, sir, I want to let you know you are our very, very first podcast interview.
Oh my goodness! Put the pressure on. All right, I'm ready.
Yeah, you'll be the first one. The first episode airs April the 5th.
Okay.
So that will be this episode airs on a Tuesday. It doesn't air. That's when it goes live, but people can listen to it whenever. But April
Okay.
5th, that's when we're putting the first episode out. And after that, it's going to be an episode every Tuesday
Great. Every Tuesday.
for at least
I'm
a
glad.
week.
I'm glad it wasn't April the 1st.
Yeah, it wasn't April the 1st. So,
Okay.
we had prepared some questions kind of to stimulate
Yes.
the conversation and all that. Obviously, we know a lot about, we've known each other for a long time, and we know a lot about your history and all that. But two things I want to get into stuff that we don't know about our guests. Really get into like the beginnings of what sparked them into music, and just so that everybody gets to know all our guests on that level. One of the things that I want to do through that process is to show potential students and potential future teachers and future mariachi educators and all that everyone starts somewhere. Everyone has a beginning, and
Right.
a lot of times students get intimidated by saying, well, I'll never be that. I mean, look at where y'all are. Well, that nobody was born where they are. You figured it
Very
out.
true.
And anyway, so that's what those questions are for. So, Miss Alondra, you have anything to add before you ask the first question?
No, like again, thank you so much for being here with us. The biggest thing about this podcast is, like he said, it's for everybody, right? I'm at my level where I'm kind of a little bit out of college, right? And I had a little bit of teaching experience, and being able to just be in an direct interaction with two people that have so much experience in what they do. This is a privilege. So thank you again. And like how Mr. Lopez said, getting to the nitty gritty of how did it start? And so my question to you is, where were you born, and where were you raised?
Okay. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, and the right immediately after I was born, we went to Mexico. We went to the state of Tamaulipas, and my first 2 years, 3 years of my bringing was in Ciudad Madero, Tamaulipas, which is the sister city and the twin city of Tampico and Ciudad Madero. So those were my beginnings of my first 3 years of life, and uh, I was exposed to it. After that, came back to San Antonio, and the reason we were there was because both my parents were They were involved with church. They were pastors. They were missionaries. And after I was born in San Antonio, they were sent to, or my dad just went ahead and started a mission in Ciudad Madero. And then after the 3 years, came back to San Antonio. And that's the beginning of the beginning right there, So I don't know if that was further back enough, but I was born in San Antonio.
Right.
Wow.
And so once you got back to San Antonio, what schools did you attend?
Well, the first school I attended was the school of my house, my parents, and they were extreme disciplinarians. And because I was in the ministry, my dad was an ex-pugilist. That means he was an ex-boxer. And when he was 30 years old, he became involved with the church. And then my mom, Belen Garcia, she was a music teacher. So she was in charge of all the music ministry. And when we came back to San Antonio, she thought it was a good idea, and she did not give me a choice. At the age of 4, she said, "You're going to learn how to sing." So that was the first thing that she taught me. She didn't give me a choice. Okay, then after we did a few years of solfege, she said, "You're going to start to learn the piano at the same time." But I said, "Mom, I don't like music. I don't want music. No quiero. So I don't care. You're going to sit down here at the piano for an hour. And if you're not going to do anything for 1 hour, then you're going to do nothing for 1 hour." So I said that, Capricho, I've always been very stubborn. And I sat there for an hour, and then she didn't let me get up. And my dad was backing her up 100%. And after a while, I just said, "Well, okay, if I'm going to be here for an hour, I may as well start playing the ivories." I was already singing, so let me start tickling the ivories. And when my mom noticed that I got interested, then she took her ruler out, because she had hundreds of students. I mean, hundreds. And every time I would make a mistake, it was, "Pap, do it again." And she would hit me with her ruler with my hand. I would play the scale. Okay, "Pap, do it again. You didn't do it correctly." And pap, it was constant pap all the time. "You're gonna do it. You're gonna do it." And by the time 6 years came around, I was already playing the piano in church.
Oh,
And then by the time I was 10 years old, my dad was already putting me in front to direct the services, and that was the beginning of my music forcibly. Inside, I was carrying a torch that I wanted to be the first Mexican to play football for the Dallas Cowboys, and that was my secret goal. That was my kept secret. And the moment that I became 12 years of age, I went to junior high school. "This is it, Mom. I'm sorry. No more music for me. No more nothing. I'm going to go and play football." And she just turned it over and said, "Okay, so you're going to do it." So by the time I reached the 10th grade in high school, both my knees were broken.
Oh, man.
Both ankles were broken. It seemed a thing of destiny, because Henry Gomez, who's involved a lot in the music of mariachi and in arrangement, and he's from San Antonio as well, and we both went to the same school together. We played together for the Junior Volks. We played. He was my linebacker right behind me, and I was in front. So I didn't know that our paths would end up in similar as far as mariachi is concerned. But when the doctor told me, "Look, Mr. Ortiz, you can keep playing if you want to, but if you keep playing, you may not be able to bend your knees anymore. So the decision is yours." And
Wow.
that was back in 1969, and I made the choice. No, I love football, but let some other one join the Dallas Cowboys and let them do that. So I went back to the first love that my mother inadvertently and didn't know what. I came back to the music. So I joined in the as a sophomore and junior and senior, I was in the choir at Sidley Lanier High School. In the meantime, I kept up with church obligations, and I kept doing things that I had to do for church and the services. And I had a gentleman in church that he and Mr. Lopez may know. I know that La Paloma, your mom, Mr. Lopez, may know the name of Vicente de Leon. And Vicente de Leon was a trio person. And he used to play el tresillo. He used to play el tresillo, but he played the guitar, and he noticed that I loved music. And he was going to the church, and he was my first guitar instructor, my very first guitar instructor. So by that time, my dad bought me my first guitar. Then after a while, we went back. We kept going to Mexico, and my dad, I said, "Hey, I like this instrument, Dad. It's la vihuela, and then that's what mariachis play." And okay, well, he bought me my first vihuela. Then after a couple of years, we kept going to Mexico because my dad had worked there, and then come back, said, this big guitarron, the big one. My dad bought me my first guitarron, and then he just kept doing that. And by that time, I was really falling in love with mariachi, but also as a singer. After I gave up football, I thought I wanted to be an opera singer. My mentor in recordings was Mario Lanza. You're probably not familiar with that name, but he was an actor, but he had a singer, era Italiano. He was an Italian, and he had some great Broadway plays, and he made several movies. His name was Mario Lanza, and I always wanted to sing like Mario Lanza. So by this time, I was getting ready to go to college, and these are real personal thoughts that I've shared with very few people. But my mom passed away in 1975, and I just come out of school, high school, and when my dad passed away 6 months later, I had already 2 semesters at San Antonio College, and I dropped out of the first semester because my mom passed away. And right as the semester started, then the second semester, where I said I'll give it a try again, and my dad died right before May, right before the finals, and I just dropped it altogether. And when I was 18 years old, there at San Antonio College, Metropolitan Opera had auditions, and they had selected me to do an audition for the Metropolitan Opera in New York. So I tried it, and they said, "Don't call us, we'll call you." All right. So it was that kind of a deal. But at least I said, good, at least I gave it a try. That's what you want to do. It's what you want to encourage everyone to do and maximize their potential. So when my dad passed away, I was sent back home, and I was the only one left at the house. And they said, "We want you to get the documents for your dad so we can certify his death and his everything." And as I was going through some of the papers that my dad had there, I saw a letter from the University of Texas, and then I saw a letter from the University of Arizona, and they had offered me 4 years of full ride scholarship to both schools, and both letters were hid and kept away from me from my father. I mean, my father kept them away from me. Also, I found a letter that I had made up with people. I had made some other organizations that I had auditioned for, and my dad kept it all from me, so such is destiny, so I stuck as much as I could. Then I joined the mariachi class at San Antonio College, and Bell San Miguel was the one that had started the very first college or undergraduate work. In 1974 was her first year. So by 74, that's when I really messed up. 75 and 76 were the really first years that really got some good foundation from SAC as far as music was concerned. And then at 77 and 78, 79, I had 2 gentlemen from Texas A&I, Kingsville, that came and they talked to Bill and said, "We really need, and we want to start a mariachi program at Texas A&I, but we need someone that you may recommend, Miss Bell? And I says, sure. He said, I got Juan Ortiz here, and then I got David Solis. Juan can handle the guitars and the violin, and David plays the trumpet. So that was the beginning of starting the mariachi programs in the university for the Valley. And there weren't any universities in Texas at that time that had mariachi programs. And when I came back from A&I in 1980, Bell hired me as the first mariachi instructor for the San Antonio Independent School District. And that's where I would start visiting different schools. I would travel with all the instruments in my car, in my vehicle. For Monday, you go to these junior high schools and you go to this high school. On Tuesday, you go to these junior high schools and then you go to this high school. On Wednesday, you're going to go to Jefferson. And on Thursday, you're going to go to Fox Tech. On Friday, you'll be at Lanier and blah, blah, blah. And you got certain middle schools. You'll be at Cooper. You're going to be at Tafoya. You're going to be at Irving. You're going to be. So that's the way it was when 1980 came around. And by that time, man, I was just completely in love. And I figured out that all the opera singers, as far as men were concerned, they all sounded like mariachis. So this was it. This was something that was destiny put on in front of me, and I'm glad that I answered that call.
Yeah, you did.
That was a lot of talking.
That's okay. So no, that was great. There's a lot of stuff there that I never even knew. So thank you so much for sharing that, sir. That's exactly what we're looking for, is to really to get to know the beginnings of people before they were the great people that that we're talking to now.
Well,
one of the things you mentioned, I want to talk about a couple of things that you mentioned. First of all, the mariachi program there at A&I Kingsville. I believe that's you're right. That is, as far as I know, the first university mariachi program in the state, if not the country, as far as I know.
Well,
I know for sure the state.
Here is the underlying enigma right here. Here's the conundrum, because it was a program. It was in the catalog as mariachi, and it was sponsored by the fine arts director, Dr. Sunderman. So the class fell under him. So it was in the catalog. So it was registered. Students did sign up for the mariachi class. Now, other states may have had a program before 1977. They may have had another program, but was it a registered class? That's what you need to find out. Was it an after-school program? And those are things that haven't been deciphered from the other states, but you can guarantee that the first college class was San Antonio College, and it was 1974, and it was in the catalog. So students were signing up for the mariachi class.
Yeah, so San Antonio College, yeah.
San Antonio College in 1974, that was the first year, and I think it went all the way up to like 1979, I think, something like that. And then the mariachi class at A&I was a mariachi class. It wasn't an ensemble class. It was the first mariachi class. So there is some credence to that as far as being the first in the country. Of course, arguably, other states and other locations can challenge that, and that's perfectly fine with me. I mean, it really doesn't matter. It what matters is what we did with what we were given. What kind of stewards were we, and where did we take it? So I feel good about that.
Yeah, good. No, that's fantastic. The one here at Texas State didn't start until 1997. So we're talking 20 years after what you were doing at A&I.
Yeah.
Of course, now it's A&M Kingsville.
Right, exactly.
But back then it was A&I. I mean, that was before even the UTRGV or UT Pan Am.
Yeah, no. From there, the student body that passed those 2 years, they fell in love and they embraced the class, they embraced the culture, they embraced the folk art so much so that many of them went into administration, and many of them made sure that they started mariachi programs in their high schools, and that's how the whole valley just spread like wildfire because of that, of those classes we had, and many have become icons in mariachi education.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those exactly, sir. You lit a match.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, and it's really dry down there in Kingsville, so it caught fire. There was
Yeah, and the other thing that you were mentioning when you're talking about all your piano and your singing, just to be clear, all that was not even mariachi yet.
oh no, that was classical music. That was just classical training. That's and I'm grateful to my mom, and I'm grateful to my dad's discipline that I was taught that, because they didn't teach me any style. They taught me what was music. Music. That's what mattered.
Right. Yeah.
You had that foundation.
Yes, exactly. That's what it was. People think that I was born with the guitarron or the violin or the, no, nothing was like that. It took a solid and a good foundation and good discipline. I think anything that I've accomplished, there are many people out there that are much more talented in their pinky than I have in my entire body, but because God gave me a spirit of discipline, I stuck to what I was in love with. When I was 15, right out of football, I started transcribing, and I will start getting music sheets that we got from the store. Back then it was called San Antonio Music. And my mom would take me over there, and she would buy music sheets and I would transpose. Okay, we want to take this a fourth higher. We want to take it a fifth higher. So I started doing that all by hand, and no necessary. I wasn't in college yet, so I started to learn how to transpose, how to do all those things. That by the time that I got to SAC, I realized there wasn't any music for mariachi. So let's just start writing the music. And when I started teaching at Lanier High School, Miss Bell was still there. She was still teaching. She was a choir teacher. And I told her, let's go through UIL. And this is when I was a mariachi instructor for the district, Santos district. And let's sign up on UIL under experimental ensembles. And I remember I wrote the music for La Bikina, and I wrote the music for El Carretero. And those are the two arrangements that I did. And we used them. And Lanier got a 1. Lanier got a 1 in UIL. So you're looking around 1980 when we started doing that. So as I said, there's nothing special about me, and nothing has ever come easy for me as far as music is concerned. I've just had the stubbornness, if you want to call it stubbornness, but look, when I said, you know what, I'm going to learn how to play the violin, I didn't hesitate. Here, I told my son Roland, here, from now on, you are the guitarron player for Campanas. From now on, I'm going to play the violin, and that's it. It didn't matter what it was. It was just stubbornness, and I was. When I was 21 years old, and there was a gentleman here in San Antonio. I'm not going to say any names, but he was a violinist that I loved. I mean, I fell in love watching him play, and I said, I want to play like him. So when I went to his house, I had my brother's violin that he had when he was in elementary. I took that violin with me. I said, I would like for you to teach me how to play the violin. Okay, so he gave me the first lesson. I started playing. Then the second lesson came around, and he said, okay, Juan, put the violin up. Okay, let me tell you this one. You're never going to learn how to play the violin. I'm just going to tell you right off the bat, you're not going to learn how to play the violin. You're already too old. You're too old. You're already 21 years old. The violin is for a student that's like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You're already too old. And the next thing is your fingers are way too fat. You've got fat fingers. He says, in essence, that was That was the end of my formal violin training. When I got home, I stayed in my car for 1 hour crying out of anger. And I was telling myself, why? Why? And how could anyone have the audacity to tell me that I cannot learn an instrument? There's just no way. So when after an hour of being in the car, just enraged, I went into the house and I went to the throne room, which is the restroom, and I put horquillas. I don't know, clothespins. I don't know if you know what horquillas, the clothespins where you used to hang your clothes up, and I put them on the bridge, the violin, to mute the sound, completely muted, and I stayed there like for about 2 or 3 hours, and I didn't let anyone come into the restroom, and that was it. That I just, God gave me that stubbornness, and God gave me that to stick with it, and stay on it, and that's what has helped me. That's what helped me, has been the discipline.
Ah, well, that's fantastic. No, I mean, that comment worked the opposite of what that violin teacher was trying to do. It actually inspired you to do more.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. That's
In spite of what
exactly
you said. Yeah.
And
Oh,
a few years later, we had a tocada, and he happened to be one of the violin players, and we played together, and we did the job. And after the job, he just looked at me and he just gave me a nod with his head, and he said,
Yeah.
"Okay, so maybe that was his purpose. Maybe that's what it was."
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, that's fantastic. There's one thing and you're talking a lot about it. One thing I tell students all the time when I work with them and all that is, yeah, talent is a big important part. Nobody's going to say that talent isn't part of music, but it's maybe 10%, 90% is your hard work.
That is so correct. I mean, and when students tell me I immediately tell the students, don't evaluate yourself. Talk to a professional, talk to someone that can actually is a good teacher, and let them evaluate you. Don't
Right.
give yourself not a good music prospect. No, let them tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So.
So, Ms. Alondra, I don't want to get lost on our questions. What was another question we had?
Oh, well, before we go into the next question, it's so crazy. I mean, you learned violin super late, and I laughed because of you said the comment about your fingers. I had the opposite effect, and see, like, you bring education, right? Mariachi education to the world. I'm like a product of it. I started mariachi in 6th grade, and I'm from Fort Worth. I don't know if you know that. Yes. And I went to school in J.P. Elder Middle School, and Mr. Granante, Dr. Granante, sorry.
Dr. Granante, yes, I know him.
And his program was there, and they said, my mom saw that was mariachi, and she was like, Alondra, join mariachi, do mariachi. And I was like, no, mariachi is lame. I don't want to do mariachi. I was like, I want to be in choir. And then my mom was like, no, please do mariachi. And I said, okay, if I'm going to be in mariachi, I have one condition. I want to play the guitar. And then she said the complete opposite of what you were told. She was like, no, mija, tienes los dedos muy gorditos. Toca violín. Again, no experience at all in music, but opposite comment. And I got violin because my mom, not a musician, she said I had fat fingers, so I could play violin.
Good. Excellent.
No, but yes. So thank you so much. Again, we're talking about education. One of our questions for you is, what are some of your most, memorable moments and accomplishments you had in music thus far that have helped you through your musical journey?
I think
before you start on this, one memorable moment you've told me before, and I want to make sure I ask you about this again because it's personal to me. If I'm not mistaken, did you tell me you saw my dad's group play at the Hemisphere once?
Yes, more than once.
Oh, can you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, no, they were a main staple. Of course, they had other mariachis from Mexico that would be brought in from Mexico to that. But every time Rosita Fernandez was presenting Era Mariachi Chapultepec y Los Hermanos Lopez, they were the ones that were accompanying her. So I got to see them perform all the time. I was working Hemisphere. So every time that I got a break, I would run immediately to the Instituto Cultural Mexicano, or they had a stage They had everything, different places in hemisphere, and that just added. That was even a precursor before I even knew I was going to be in mariachi. Before I even was thinking about, going into this road of música ranchera. So Mariachi Chapultepec, the Teatro de Alameda también, all of those were like seeds that I knew that my parents never got to see the fruition of it, but it laid a good, strong foundation for me. And anyone, there are many names you can say as far as mariachi, but that's another thing. But there's no doubt in my mind that when you talk about the first family and the first mariachi in San Antonio, undoubtedly Mariachi Chapultepec is number one. Is number one. So not only was it by name, not only was it because of their destiny, but it was because they were great, great musicians. I mean, that's what it was.
Yeah, obviously I was too young to ever really see them. I mean, I was around them, but I was 5 years old when my dad and my uncles all passed away in Chicago. So that was way before my time.
Yeah. Well, no. It anyone that knows anything about mariachi in San Antonio, and really for the whole fact, if you wanted mariachis outside of Chapultepec, they had to come from Mexico. Now there are some the context of the word mariachi was anyone that was dressed in traje de charro. So there was not a distinction of trovadores, which they should have been called trovadores. They should have been called trios, rancheros. They should have been called conjuntos. They should have been called whatever it was. But the term mariachi just came in, and they started using it as without any license of definition, nothing. If you were dressed in charro, you're mariachi. That was it. So Chapultepec set things right. And there were different members back then that I worked with, and I know that your dad and your family worked with. One of them is Ben Valdez, and the other one was Rudy. I can't remember his last name right now, but also Pedro Moreno. All these people were very familiar with Mariachi Chapultepec. And then, of course, I always would go to your tío. I think he's already passed on. Every time I was at Mi Tierra, I would always ask him for these songs, and your tío would always just chuckle and say, chiva, ahí vienes otra vez con estas canciones. You want to hear these particular songs? And I don't know which tío it was. I don't know if it was Arturo or who it was, but I would ask for all those old songs. And he said, ¿Tú qué sabes de esas canciones? Esas canciones son viejas, ¿tú qué sabes? But he never denied anything. He played the songs, and he was so great as a musician and as a vocalist. Oh my God. And we learned a lot from them. It was almost like you had to learn by osmosis. They wouldn't sit down and give you a classroom, but just by being there and just by observing and just by recording, I would take my cassette. That was my technology back then. When they invented the cassette, I took cassettes everywhere with me, and I would record them, and I would record everything that they would do, because that's what it was. That's I had that desire in me. So Chapultepec remains very close to me and in my heart.
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. Speaking of recordings, one of these days, I definitely want to figure out a way to get a recording of this concert they did at Our Lady of the Lake.
Wow.
I don't know if Our Lady of the Lake keeps any of that archived or anything, but I would love to get a recording of that. And I know there is a recording, because I've been told there is. Rio to Rio.
Let's do it.
So that'd be great. That'd be great. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. You were going to tell us some of your more memorable moments.
Yeah, I would have to say number one, to have an idea and to have a dream and to see it realized is very rare. It's very rare. And when Belle and I joined up and we were a team, and then eventually we got married, and I was the one that told her, look, There's nothing more beautiful there. We love mariachi. There's a whole bunch of people that love mariachi, and we should have a conference. We should have a workshop with the world's greatest mariachi. By this time I was well researched in Mariachi Vargas de Tecalitlan, second and third generation, more the third generation. And Bell was not really familiar with them, and neither was too many people anywhere. I said, these guys are the icons. These are the ones that we need to bring down. And for a whole year, we had to fight City Hall and convince them that, first of all, the city of San Antonio came to us and says, we'd like to do something in September because visitation and visitor is low. We have such a low visitor turnout in September. What can you do to offer us? And then that's when we started with Jimmy Draper. We started Mariachi Festival down on the river. And we had the mariachis traveling from different places down on the San Antonio River. And then when we got the mariachi conference, it was after a couple of years of convincing the city council. At that time, it was the mayor, Lila Cockrell, and then Henry Cisneros was sitting in the council as well. And we had some other colorful council people, and they fought us tooth and nail. They said, why are you bringing people from out of town? We got great mariachis. We have great mariachis here. We don't need to. And Bell was the spokesperson. And Bell told him, look, when you have conferences and when you have workshops, who do you bring in? Do you bring a local person? And they told her, no, we bring in the best, regardless if it's in another part of the world or something. We bring in the best. So that's what we're doing. That we want the world's greatest mariachi to come. And finally, after we got approval, and the Convention and Visitors Bureau helped us out the first 2, 3, 4 years. And that's how that dream finally became a reality. That was unbelievable. And then Bell and I always had our main push in our heart was always about education. It wasn't about competition. It wasn't about making money. It wasn't about raising funds. It was nothing. It was about getting it into the schools. And Bell started way before I did. She started it back in the mid 60s, early 60s, and she coined a phrase back then. She said Los Tejanitos, and this was a little elementary group that was a choir that were ballet folklorico, and then they added guitars to their program. So it was called Los Tejanitos, and they would be asked. And then Bell, in 1968, she was asked by the principal of Lanier High School, Mr. Jesse Mendez, we want to hire you for Lanier, Bell, and we want you to have the same program over here. So in 1969 was the very first ballet folklorico class, which included the choir, dancers, and at that time, the full mariachi. And it was back in 1969. So that, and to see where mariachi education has come here, Texas is far ahead of any other country or any other state as far as mariachi education is concerned. And that was the greatest dream. Not too many people can dream something and then see it come to fruition. And we've been blessed to have that. So obviously that's number one in my mind. Number two was at a very early age, whatever that it may be, I realized that mariachi, I wasn't about to change mariachi. So rather than to become a negative force with these groups I was already playing in San Antonio with these groups, and the mariachi back then consisted of 2 trumpet players, a guitarron, a vihuela, and a guitar, maybe 2 guitars. And that was it. That was the mariachi. And I was trying to convince the mariachi directors, we need violins. We need the same suit. We need the same traje. We need sombreros. We need to have a scheduled rehearsal, and hopefully the rehearsal doesn't turn into a drinking fest. And hopefully, and I was fighting a battle that I wasn't gonna be able to change the culture. I was not gonna change the culture. So I wanted to start my own group. So I started Mariachi Ortiz back in Kingsville. I started Mariachi Ortiz back then. Then I started Mariachi Universal here in San Antonio. And then in 1980, Mariachi Vargas christened us Campanas de America. And now I've had the group now for 44 years. This September will be 44 years. And that is another of I feel, the greatest things. I've been able to pass it on now to my son, and Roland's now taken over pretty much all the administration and everything. I guess he still thinks I'm useful, so he still calls me to do tocadas over there con campanas. So I'm still doing that. And then, of course, performances to actually get to perform at the White House was a highlight. To be the very first mariachi to sit on stage at the Hollywood Bowl and to be the first mariachi campana to play the first notes on mariachi, that was a tremendous accomplishment also. And then to work with many artists, but I will always remember that Willie Nelson invited us, along with Little Joe y La Familia, invited us to go play Farm Aid in Indiana and in Iowa. I'm sorry, in Iowa, and to see over 60,000 country western fans go crazy over mariachi music was unbelievable. So those are the top three things. Of course, again, the education, playing at the White House and playing at the Hollywood Bowl, and then playing for Farm Aid. Those remain, they stay up there as far as my memories, my greatest memories.
Wow, those are great. Those are fantastic memories. And of course, the one thing, another thing, obviously, you have so many things to be proud of and so many memories. The other thing that was really a big deal for Mariachi Campanas is starting that mariachi show at Fiesta Texas for a while.
Oh my God, yes, there's that there's so many things that passed my mind, but we were very, very honored that the Gaylord Company, which was Opryland in Nashville, Tennessee, when they told us, and they told us around 1990, a couple of years before the park opened in 1992. So we want to hire this particular group. And they said, we want to hire any mariachi because we want a mariachi in there. And I asked them, how did you come across our name? So everyone that they asked, they put their mariachi first. And then the second mariachi that they always would say was Campanas America. But their group was first. Who's the best group that we can get? They put their group first, and then they said Campanas. So we figured that everyone that we asked, the second group was always Campanas America. So we figured we'd call you and see what happened. Oh. And that's how we were given the opportunity to audition like any other of the shows that were there. And Belle and Anthony and myself formed a really, really good team. Belle was the director. Anthony was the producer. And we had a great director for the dancing. And then I was in charge of all the music. So yeah. it really set a standard for all mariachi shows anywhere else.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic. I mean, in the May of 2019, at Tech State we have the Feria de Mariachi, and because we have Michelle Quintero and Miguel Guzman, who were all in part of that Fiesta Texas shows, because we had them, and of course Pete Moreno, her uncle. Right. Was also part of the shows. I told him, I said, I want to do a show, similar to that. Obviously, we didn't have the budget, and we don't have the technology and all that Fiesta Texas had in the time, but we did something kind of to pay homage to that, and we called it Sol Mexicano, and that the university loved it. The students loved it. It was a lot of work, but it was basically, combining some of those same elements that you guys had, just not at the same level because you guys had all the time and the budget. But it was a lot of fun. But even just that little thing, us dipping our toe in that water was so much work. I can't even imagine how hard it was for y'all.
It was the closest that I came to Broadway. It was the closest that I came to Broadway. And we were blessed that we had experienced people from Opryland that helped us along the way. And they helped us with the auditions. And then they gave us the best of the equipment that they had. And many times it's not what you have, it's what you do with what you have. And then you really are a good steward of what it is. And we just took advantage of every opportunity that we had. And I mean, there are things that that come into our mind. Like right now, you sharing that with me. I remember it was back in 19. I think it was 19. I can't remember exactly when Selena uh, passed away. What year was that?
She passed away.
1995.
What's that?
What
95.
95.
85?
90.
95. 95. Okay. So a couple of years later, we heard the gossip that there was going to be a play on Broadway of the story of Selena, and word had come down that there's a person in San Antonio that we would love for him to play the father of Selena on Broadway, and his name is Juan Ortiz. We'd like for him to audition. So I auditioned. It was at the Edgewood School of Fine Arts. So I auditioned, and then they called me on Wednesday. It was 97, I think 1997. I was teaching already at Palo Alto College. They said, Mr. Ortiz, you ready? We need for you. We're going to fly you in on Friday, and we start practice on Saturday. And you're going to be doing the father role for Selena on the Broadway show. And I could not believe it, man. And I had to talk to the school administration. I said, look, this is an opportunity. I can't let it go by. I can't pass by. So Friday they called me and said, Mr. Ortiz, we regret to tell you that Edward James almost decided to take on the role. So we no longer need you as the role for the father of Selena. So I bow down to Edward James almost. But I came this close to working on Broadway. This close, you know.
You hadn't quit your job yet, had you?
No, I had not quit my job. You know, that's why it was Friday. I was gonna have to quit on Monday the following week, but fortunately on Friday they called me to tell me that Mr. Olmos had accepted the role, so I didn't have to.
Wow. Then we have Ms. Alondra. Before I forget, I know we have all these questions I want to get to. Let's go to the questions. What was the next thing we had, Ms. Alondra?
Well, within all your experiences, you have so many memories. There has to be some moments where you're like, I cannot believe that happened because it was just so crazy, ridiculous, and hilarious. Do you have any of those?
Well, I was thinking about that. I was thinking about that question with the story you just told us.
Okay, I have two, and I will always remember. And it was surreal. I could no longer feel my body. It was the first time in 1977. We went to Mexico City, and we went to go see a rehearsal with Mariachi Vargas, and they were accompanying Lucha Villa.
Oh,
Lucha
wow.
Villa. So we went to Teatro Blanquita, Mexico City, right downtown, and it was like I was seeing myself. It was an out-of-body experience, and to know every single member by their name, their first name, middle name, last name, they were just completely surprised that who's this guy? You know, how does he know us? I had already been doing my research, and I knew exactly every member, and it was just I started to cry. I mean, it was an epiphany. That's what it was. I'll never forget. I'll always. I don't want to say that. That's kind of negative. I'll never forget. I'll always remember that. And probably the most hilarious, and it happened twice to me. Once in Fiesta, Texas, and another one at a tocada. It was very customary for me to spontaneously just jump off the stage and continue emceeing and singing and just doing the show. But at one of them at Fiesta, Texas, when I jumped, the whole inside of my charro pants opened up, and I had a skirt. It was a skirt. It converted into a skirt, and oh my God, I could not believe every seam burst from the inside. So it was complete. And it happened to me again at a tocada in Laredo. I jumped off the stage, and then everything opened up on my pants. So those will remain in there etched in my mind forever.
Wow.
You had a Madonna moment, semi.
Oh yeah, that's exactly. What's it called? wardrobe
Wardrobe
malfunction.
malfunction, yeah.
Was it Madonna or Janet Jackson? I think it was one of those.
Janet Jackson was the one that.
Yeah, Jackson.
Oh my God. That is
Oh my
crazy.
God, those are crazy, funny stories.
Yes.
What's
Another
next, Miss Alondra?
we have for you. I know that you said you retired and then you got called to said you want to teach and you said yes. What are your future plans at the moment?
Well, at the moment, I think I'd like to probably teach maybe for another 4 years, maybe another 4 years. And I think after that, I think it would be suffice. And I think I have some other plans that I'd like to do. I have some other projects that I'd like to start, but because of COVID and after a year and a half of absolutely nothing, no work, when I was asked if I wanted to, I just jumped at the opportunity to go back to teaching. So it is a challenge, but I'm hoping that I can at least last a couple of more years, at least, or 3 more years of teaching. That's what's my desire.
Great.
Awesome. Yes, and like you said, after COVID, teaching has been hard. Teaching has been very
hard. It's not the same. And I have to remember that I was spoiled for 27 years that I was at Palo Alto College. And then to come back to public schools, I mean, it is a complete new challenge.
Yes.
It's not anything. The pedagogy is not anywhere compared to the andragogy that you have to do with the adults. You know, the pedagogy for the kids is a complete challenge. So my respects to you all as teachers, but I was just spoiled at Palo Alto for many years.
Yes. Well, you're a very memorable person. You have lots of memories. Like I said, you pioneer in bringing education to Texas, and there's so many people that are able to, go to school and do mariachi because of the many things that you were able to do along with Belle. So thank you again. But at the end of the day, how would you like to be remembered?
I would like to be remembered as a person that fell in love and did his best for the culture of mariachi. I know that I'm not going to please everyone. I learned that lesson a long time ago, but I do want to be remembered as a person that loved his profession, that had patience, and I did it all for the art, and I did it all for education. That's what I did it for.
Yeah, sir. Well, yeah, I mean, you are definitely all of that already. So, I mean, my hat's off to you for everything you've done. Like Alondra said, I mean, there's so your tide has lifted so many boats in our ocean of music. So,
well, Mr. Lopez, and at this point, if I call you Dr. Lopez, don't think of it as anything less than respect for you, because anyone else that has been in the profession that you've been, ese es un maestro, ese es un doctorado, it's a Dr. Lopez, as far as I'm concerned, because you have, you're a great example of stewardship. You're a great example of what was given to you, and you not only took that talent, but you multiplied it. And I've always had a spiritual background, and one of the parables is that certain people were given certain talents, and the one that was given 2 talents, he multiplied it, or she multiplied it double, 4 talents, and this is to give back to you. And then there was one person that was very talented, give it 1 talent, and that person, instead of doing something with that talent, that person buried it and kept it away. And then when it came time to report, what did you do with the talent? Here, I'm giving you back the talent. Well, you did nothing. You did nothing with that. And Mr. Lopez, you are a great example of a great steward, and you and your tide have created an entire generation of maestros. You have completely changed all the universities and the standard for universities is set here at Texas State. That's what it is, because many universities would like to have what you have. They'd like to have what the university has, but with students like Alondra, not because she's just here, but with Michelle Quintero with you, and with Mike Guzman, and with all these great talents. I have ex-students of mine, they're in Campanas. I mean, I have members in Campanas that are ex-students of yours that are playing in Campanas, so you I am honored that you and Alondra would consider me to do this first podcast.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. When we started putting together our lists, you were the first person we wanted to contact to open up our podcast. We've always respected you. I've always respected you, and everybody always respects your lifelong commitment to mariachi education. So there was no other person that rose to the top of that list. So, I want you to know that. And we appreciate all the time, and more importantly, that you shared some details about your beginnings, stuff that a lot of people didn't know. At least I didn't know.
Yeah, well, there's a lot more in there, but you don't want to get off the course too much, because there are several times, and you're going to go through it, Alondra, and I know that Mr. Lopez has already gone. There have been several crossroads in our lives, and what direction do you want to take? Where do you want to go? And that's where I feel right now that my life is right now. I'm at a crossroads in my life. I already feel like I've had two lifetimes. My first one with my parents, and up to the time that they passed away, that was my first life. Then the second life was everything that I did with Bell and I did with the district and with ANI. And that now that I'm retired, that was the end of my second life. And now, Lord willing, this third life will have some fruition as well.
I'm sure it will, sir. Your dedication will rise to the top, and you'll stubbornly get into something new.
Oh yes, definitely.
Lifelong educator, lifelong learner. That's part of it. So thank you.
That's it. Thank you. You never want to stop learning. Thank you so much, Alondra. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Maestro Lopez.
A pleasure as always. Thank you, and we will be talking some more in the near future.
All right, great. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye, sir.
Thank you for joining.
Ahua.
Yeah, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.